All right, it is 8 o'clock and this is the Redevelopment Authority meeting. We are in City Hall Council Chambers. It is October 2nd, 2024 at 8 a.m. Next item on the agenda is consider approving the minutes of the previous meeting, which was August 7th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the August 7th meeting minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have public comment. Any public comment? Third and final for public comment. Hearing none, we'll move on to general agenda items for consideration. We have financial report and update, A, August revenue and expense report, and B, 2024 equalized value. And I'll turn that over to Emily.
Okay. The August revenue and expense reports are in the packet. Are there any questions?
Well, it looks like we have a revenue surplus of about 200,000 between them all. Is that?
At the moment,
Okay.
yes.
So, the ones that are producing, are those going to drop off sometime soon? Or, what does the future look like? Because we make decisions on how to spend money, some of them, and in the past, it was always, we never got a clear answer of, how much money do we have, when will we have the money and everything else. It'd be nice to have an idea when we're making decisions with money that may or may not need to be borrowed.
Okay.
So, I appreciate this, but it's like your answer. It's not always. This is it.
Right.
It's more of a confusing picture, which we've never had clarity on in the past. So.
And when we get to the equalized value report, we can look at a chart that I put in there, which, again, is not going to give you all the information you want, but can start a conversation, and then I'll see what I can put together for you.
Perfect.
For next time.
Thank you.
Mhm.
It appears, Emily, that I believe I know the answer, but these TIF and these TIDs also help support administrative cost here within the city, correct? So the city doesn't have to use general obligation bonds or tax rates increases to pay for, like, the city attorney or things of that nature, correct?
Yes.
Or a portion of their salaries.
And the justification is that, like every single month, I'm balancing the books for the district, so it makes sense that part of me would be charged to
Correct.
the TIDS for doing that, part of Rod if he's working on a project. What Merrill does is at the end of the year, there's a journal entry that records those expenses, so right now you won't see any of those expenses being charged.
Even though they're budgeted at this point in time?
Correct.
Okay.
So I think what's been done in the past is that Kathy would look at the year and see what projects were being done and what would make sense in terms of people's time being charged to those districts.
And do you know what percentage of their salaries are paid through the TIDS? Whether it's the city attorney or yours or the engineering area?
It looks like it's based on what was going on in the district during the year.
Okay.
So not a set percentage.
It's been up to a third.
A third of the salaries?
Third.
I think, and I've worked places where it's just like at the beginning of the year, 25% of my time goes to the district, like they just make those percentages up front and just charge those throughout the year regardless of what.
Takes place?
Yeah.
Yep, gotcha.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the August revenue and expense reports?
Just to touch on, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, Emily, on page 23, there's two incentive payments to JJ Premier, and it looks like there was only one budgeted. Is that because another opportunity came up and we went with it?
I think it was based on when the occupancies were issued. So it must have been budgeted last year or in 2022, and he didn't get occupancy till 2023.
Okay.
So there were.
It's a
more
timing
occupancy.
issue then.
Exactly, thank you, yes.
Okay.
Just to touch on what Clyde was mentioning as far as city expenses, we've talked about it before. A lot of our infrastructure wouldn't happen or wouldn't have been updated without the TIDS too. And I know we all kind of have heard that before, but just want to reiterate that. A lot of our projects, the big projects, wouldn't have happened.
Such as out on O'Day Street?
Yeah,
That
any
wouldn't-
of these.
Any of the projects, okay. So we do, it says streets utility wages, so we do pay for some of the the superintendents also. Mr. Bonnick's, part of Bonnick's salary comes out of here too?
Yep, and they actually code it to the project during the payroll, so
Sure.
it goes right through the payroll
Sure.
module, yeah.
So it's a direct expense to that particular project?
Yeah, so it's the administration piece that is charged after the fact.
Okay. Which is important, because without that, the city would have to
Support it on the general side.
support it on the tax side of things.
Correct.
And borrow with general obligation funds, I would assume, if they needed, if they were able to.
Correct.
So in that summary report, then, that's, you've just got that under administration, is that correct? Each individual one, I see that they've got that listed under expenses, but in the summary report, which is, as long as I can get the page number on here somewhere, 29, I believe it is.
That's right, Clyde. Page 29.
So
Administration expenses, and that's what we're talking about right there, correct?
Yes. So that would also include the annual audit. That would include like the DOR fees to register the tax increment district.
Move on to equalized value.
Yeah. So this is the report that came out on Monday. Sorry for the lateness in getting it into the packet. But I wanted to try and put together some information for the RDA on what's going on with our equalized values.
If you would, what page are you on?
This came separately. Did it get in the packet?
That's all right.
I'm on the full packet
I
on
think
the,
it's,
I'm on the-
are you on the revised packet,
I'm on the
Clyde?
full packet that was posted on the city's website.
Because I think it got put way towards the end rather than being the next thing in the,
Okay.
but I have separate ones.
Okay.
Did we find it?
Not yet, but I'll get there.
Okay.
Do you want me to print your copy for you?
No, that's okay, Lori. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just, and I don't know if you had a chance to read it because it did come out late, but I'm just trying to explain what's going on with our equalized values. In 2024, the equalized values are going to have a pretty significant drop for our tax increment districts. And this is in part because of, mostly due to the revaluation. So the last revaluation that the city had was in 2016. And so every year, Kit would give the values to the Department of Revenue as he saw them, as he valued them. And the Department of Revenue would say like, oh, it's been since 2016 since we've had a reval. And so they would be looking around at what they saw other municipalities doing who had recent revaluations. They'd look at what's going on in the market and do this adjusting factor. And it's called an aggregate ratio. So they would take our values and adjust them based on what they see going on in the market. This year, we obviously had a reval, so they took Kit's numbers and said, okay, this is fair market. So the difference between what they had been doing are adjusted, and Kit's fair market is pretty significant drop, meaning that our, tax increment districts were probably being overvalued in the past. So
Some of them,
some of them, yeah.
correct.
Yep. Do you know what page this is?
92. 92 in the packet.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, so
I read
I've
it
got
earlier.
the different districts listed there. We've got their base value, so that's the value of when they were created, the 2023 values, and the 2024 values, and you see the dollar change then. So like TID 3 is, $23 million decrease in value. But TIDs 10 and 11, Fox Point, and the apartments, they're both growing and doing well, so there's, $7 million of additional value recognized in 2024.
Again, on
Like
the
you-
residential area, that's where most of the value increases have come, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's new value.
And if you look at the last 2 years, what Emily was saying, they throw an assessment ratio in there, which went from 0.85 to 0.73 and down to 0.64, and that's a
Yeah.
divisor, which wasn't realistic because it's back up to 1 now, or 100%. So there were some assumptions made on the market in the last 8 years compared to, after COVID, commercial space values went way down. So you look at these and Kit compared recent sales, and that's where they lie. Commercial didn't raise like residential did, so.
So the two largest, as we know, is TID 3 and TID 4, on a percentage basis and a dollar amount basis, correct? TID 3 is scheduled to be closed, is that correct?
Yes.
No more expenses are allowed in 3, 4, and 5, is that correct?
3 and 4.
3 and 4?
But 5 and 6 we could close. They're kind of just hanging there.
Yes.
I think that goes to some of Mr. Barr's comments of how many more of these are we going to be able to generate income from that have utilized before to pay some of the other TID bills.
So what we did when we got these values is we took a look at the borrowing that we were going to do. We took a look at the project plans and sort of, we just need to readjust. I mean, this isn't great to lose $23 million in a district, but it's not, a lot of these districts have 30 years, not TID 3 obviously, but we have some time. And so just making sure that we're constantly looking at the health of the districts, making sure we're adjusting our plans and, accommodating for these variations in value.
And if I'm not mistaken, TID 3 is the mall area out in the east side of town, and the Walmart building has been vacant along with some of the other property sites in there, so I'm sure that had an effect on the valuation because of vacancy rates.
Yes. So the first thing we did after getting these values is I worked with Ellers, our financial advisors, and we looked at what the borrowing plan was for 2024 and sort of made some adjustments. We had set up the borrowing plan based on our 2023 values and where we thought things were going, and now that we have better information, we're readjusting those plans. So we changed we had to do some short-term instead of long-term borrowing just to support, we're looking at the health of the district and making sure that this makes sense and that the revenue coming in can cover the debt payments, so we did some adjusting there. And so I have a chart on the next page showing the revised borrowing plan. And I think our big concern when we were looking at the change in equalized values is looking at, like Clyde was saying, we were using 3 and 4 to support 8 and 9. And looking at the change in values in 3 and 4, we can't really rely on 3 and 4 anymore. So where can we? Where's the growth happening? Where is there some capacity to help out 8 and 9? And so that's what we're looking at now.
Which could be 10 and 11,
Correct.
which increased in value.
Correct.
It's not all doom and gloom.
Right.
There are some properties that increased in value. The 11, the apartments, that's the Eugene property, if I'm not mistaken.
No,
Is that it?
11 is north side, Mark area.
Okay.
But 8 is that area you're talking about, which will have growth.
There'll be growth on
significant
there.
growth
Yep.
in this next couple of years with.
And that was a decrease of only 1.7%, or less than $500,000.
Yeah.
Emily, how will these numbers impact potential borrowing for 2025 as far as what projects we might potentially be looking at?
For 2025, we're looking at projects in 11. We're looking at projects in Spruce Street is going to be 2024, right?
Yep, State Street would be 11.
Yes.
And if the FBO hangar would go, that would be 11 also.
too. And maybe 13, but we haven't. So 11 is fine. 11 can, I've already talked with Brian about that. 11 can support any projects we're planning there because there's growth there. It's doing fine. TID 13 is the one that's not generating any increment right now, so we'll have to work on that one. Either delay the project or find another way to fund that project.
Which project is in 13?
That's going to be the sewer and water extension, right?
Highway G to hook in the
Industrial Park?
and Geis's meet in Little Florida, but they're paying for a large portion of that. So we're trying to piggyback on their need.
And recognize, even though we if we close 3 and 4, those tax dollars then that were frozen for the city and the county and whatever are going to be coming to them at the full level then,
Yeah.
right? So there'll be an increase in tax revenue to the city when they're closed, it's just not the TID.
Increase in value. So
In
yes.
value,
Yep,
yep.
exactly.
When it does come time to close those, there is an option to leave it open, well, not for the housing portion, but for another 3 years for us to capture that increment, but I think all of the entities need the tax dollars, so it's going to be a,
Whether it's a
It's gonna be a
school or the
discussion
city.
then.
Correct.
And that's a perfect segue into the next part of the report where I'm talking about the updates to the project plans. Again, we're just looking at everything. We want to make sure that we're thinking long-term. We're looking at the health of the districts, and so we're updating some project plans.
Emily, before you proceed, when, like you said, Rod, that the other entities would all need to agree on this, when would that decision be made?
No,
Before budgeting, after budgeting?
be for 26.
Yes.
The
Okay,
entities don't
okay.
have to agree to the close, to the extension they
Right.
do, to the extension they do, yes.
And we're having a joint review board. When is it?
November 12th.
November 12th.
But that wouldn't be on
Yep.
this one.
All right.
So that would
Where-
impact 2026.
Where would you be leading on that decision right now? Is there strong feeling that we should extend these? Or is there not enough information available yet?
So we're recommending, or we're requesting to extend TID 4 for 3 years, because that one needs additional time to generate, to repay its obligations. TID 3 is in a position where it could close this year, but one of the things I've been asking Ellers to look at with me is, there is a 1-year extension that you could do. I'm not recommending anything right now, I just think if we don't look at it, then we don't have the full information. So if we were even allowed it 1 more year to generate increment, it could sort of, through this equalization or equalized value, could have swing back. So it dropped 23 million. What they're saying when I talk to the Department of Revenue is that often when they see these decreases, that the next year will kind of swing back up. And again, we won't have that information until next fall, but I just want to get some more information about that and just look into what that might look like and bring that information so that we.
If extended for 1 more year, aren't the revenues used for affordable housing, or can it be under
They're-
Act 145, you can still use them within
Yeah.
the way it is?
Correct. So there are a couple of different extensions you could do, and we would not be doing the affordable housing extension. We'd
It'd be
doing
the, under Act 145, like you have on page 92 here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
On the other hand, we need the tax revenue on the general side. I mean,
Correct.
we're going to be scratching.
And I think the other entities probably would be looking at that too.
Mhm. So if you could, the process, and you may or may not know the process, but evidently you apply for a 3-year extension under, it must be Act 145 through the state of Wisconsin, correct?
Yep.
And then, is there a hearing held, or how is it determined then by those entities?
Yes, it would be a joint review board decision.
Which would be the county,
School.
the
tech-
the
Max.
K-12?
Yep.
And then secondary education, because some of them go to the technical college, correct?
Yep.
And then the city of Merrill.
Correct. And there's also a public member on that
So
committee too.
public, you said what committee it would go to?
The joint
Joint
review board.
The review board? Okay. How many members are in the review board?
Those 4 plus 1.
Pete is our citizen member now.
Okay. What happens if there's a tie vote? That's my point.
Kind of
There's
hard when it's
5.
5.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, so on the next page, I think that's page 92 of your packet. This is the summary of the project plan amendments that we're proposing. And it's really just making, there's that 3-year extension that we talked about for 4. We talking about making 6, 7, 11, and 12 donor districts, just so that they're in the position to help 8 and 9 if needed.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And then also, we're requesting a 3-year extension for 9. Again, there are some obligations there that just, we need a little more time to pay off.
Okay.
Any questions there?
I would just like to thank you for the clarity that this brings.
Oh, good, good. And then actually this chart at the bottom under TID summary is I really just tried to put together some information, like a quick snapshot of where the districts are. So we've got the name, the type of district it is, the base year, so when it was created, the end of the expenditure period. So it's really just like a TID 9, what are we talking about? So you can just sort of jump and look at that, just for your information. There's a summary here. So we've got the maximum life. That's when it will close by state statutes unless you request an extension. The value at the base, the 2024 value, and the current increment. Any questions on that table?
Just out of curiosity, what caused the east side to go up so much? What was the value?
Go down so much?
From the base
well-
value? That was
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Just because of.
It's
just
time.
because okay,
Yep.
That's what it is.
That was
Okay.
20,
I know
it
was
started,
looking
I think it's
up
20 years. The TIDs are 20 years in length, correct?
Depending on the kind of TID it is, yes.
In this particular one, well, the base year was
Mixed.
2005, so.
Yeah, so,
yep.
okay, that makes sense.
I think on Emily's point of extending it a year or even 3 years, if that increment does swing back up, that's what we fully capture in the ability to tax at that time.
Mhm.
If it's lower, that's the increment that we can capture, and then from there it just grows. But I think it's in our best interest to look at it with an open mind, not just we want them closed. Just what's the best for everybody.
Okay, and then on the last page of that report is just next steps. We're doing the 2025 budget development. We're closing on our 2024 debt issues. We're looking at a November 12th meeting with the RDA to do a public hearing on the proposed plan amendments, and then to adopt resolutions accepting those, supporting that project plan amendments. And then the joint review board meeting would meet, I think I can't remember the date, the 14th, does that sound right?
Thursday?
Joint review board? I don't have my calendar.
I'll send an email with that, just so that we're all on the same schedule and working off the same information. So we want the RDA to look at the proposed project plan amendments. We want to have a public hearing on those proposed amendments to make sure, people have the chance to comment on it. And then we'll take the recommendation to the joint review board to adopt again, that's just the project plan amendments. That's not looking at closing 3 or anything like that, just making the donor districts and applying for a 3-year extension. And then the last bullet point there is just put initial modeling of the 2025 closeout, so we know what we're looking at, getting the timeline ready, getting everything organized. Any questions? That's a lot of information.
Emily, on the page before this, the last, where you've got the summary of each TID district and the current increment. So for example, on TID number 3, the increment is 30 million. Then that gets split between all entities?
The increment is the part captured by just the TID district. Everything, like, we have the base value, and that's frozen, and that's shared with the county, the school district, the city. That's frozen. The increment is everything above that, so that's the TIDS portion.
So then that value stays within the cities?
Within the tax increment district.
The following year after the TID closes, it's taxed at same rate as the rest of the city. So that'll be the new base, call it, if you would open another TID on top of that, which we're not
But that
talking
new
about.
base then becomes what each
Shared.
entity
Thank
gets
you. Yeah, I
their...
didn't understand your question.
Correct.
Sorry,
Yep.
okay.
Emily, I have my calendar now. I have on November 12th, 4:30 for the joint review, 6 o'clock for RDA, and 7 o'clock for the council.
Thank you.
To talk to Ms. Farmanek here, the base value of $13 million, that's what the entities are getting paid taxes on today, correct?
Yep.
And what happens now is that the new base would be roughly that $44 million.
Correct.
Okay? So that's what the taxes would be that would come into those, the four areas.
Thank you, well said.
So the TID was able to take those dollars, that $30 million, and use that for infrastructure improvements to help pay for
Well, the
administrative
tax
fees,
on it, not the 30
tax
million.
dollars, so the
yes.
city wouldn't have to borrow those funds through the TID. Yep.
The tax generated from that 30 million.
Yep.
Okay, last piece, moving on to the 2023 Tax Increment District Annual Reports. This is earlier in the packet, I think it's 29 of the packet. These are reports that I'm required annually to file with the Department of Revenue. And so you just have a copy of each report, and then on page 29 is a summary looking at all of them lined up in a row. And so this is looking at 2023, the year past, so it's really just for your information.
Emily, I do have a question on that page.
Okay.
So it looks like the ending balances that you have across there for each TID, I mean, a lot of them look negative. Is that because we have not included the 2023 borrowing yet on this? Is that why they're showing that way, or?
Yes, that's a big piece of it. Yep, and otherwise, I mean, the tax increment districts are, especially some of the later ones, they're young, so they're not generating the increment. They have more expenses than revenue at this point, but as they grow and increment grows, they'll be generating more revenues. So it's not surprising to see a new district with a negative balance.
We've taken loans out to do projects and development agreements in those districts. And what you're seeing is that portion.
Any questions on that?
Just a comment, I'd like to thank Emily. She's been working her tail off both with the budget and all this stuff, so thank you.
I think it's a lot more clear this year than past. So we appreciate it very much.
Great, excellent.
Hearing none, we'll move on to the discussion and approval of a development agreement between the City of Merrill and Wendorf Construction LLC.
This has been delayed a while. We finally had a preliminary plat approved. It's going to the state for final approval. We needed it just for clarification on lots and descriptions. I guess if you've had a chance to review it and have any questions for me or for us, well.
Included in here is an easement to get to that trail, the Prairie River Trail.
Correct. Well, they actually gave us the proper.
They gave us the easement, and I noticed it in there. I think it was lot 16 or something of that nature.
Yep, deeded access.
The plan for them is to start building next year.
They would like to break ground this fall, but it's coming quick, so they may get the lots cleared off on 10th Street, and that's about it, ready for spring.
And I don't recall, Mr. Akey, but how many lots are there in this area?
It changed. It went from 8 or 19 to, I think, 22. We made the lots a little different sizes.
Okay. So then the plan is to build a minimum of 3 homes a year.
That's his goal.
That's according to the...
Yep.
Okay.
The agreement says that they only have to build 3 homes though, right?
Per year.
It doesn't say per year.
It says annually.
Yeah.
Number J
annually,
underneath,
there it
under
is.
J,
Okay.
it says annually. So then it could be up to 7 years for them to fully get this
Correct.
based upon this. It
Yep.
may be 4, maybe 5, depending upon what he's doing, I'm sure.
What happens if they don't build?
We don't have a clawback in here. I think it's our investment in the future. It's no different than a bunch of these other ones that we've done. We're looking at it to the point where I understand your concern. I do. But I think we should take that chance.
Mr. Wendorf has
I
got
have
a
confidence
pretty good
in him.
reputation on making sure that things get done.
Yeah, and we did put in there where he can't sell lots, as far as additional lots where something's not going to get built on. That's in there. There's a clause in there about economic conditions, if all of a sudden he can't sell a house, he's not going to build a house just to build it. And I think that's part of, I don't like the word, the partnership. I won't say public-private, but I don't like that term, but I think it is a partnership with him.
It's just, 7 years of development makes me nervous when we don't know what's going to happen, especially going into,
Election season.
and not just that, but I mean,
The economy.
the economy is very unknown.
Yep.
So, I mean, they just dropped interest rates by half point,
Yep.
and demand went down.
Yep.
Houses are sitting on the market, half of houses are sitting on the market for more than 60 days, and that was after they dropped interest rates by 0.5%. So, I mean, I know he can get things done, but you can't create demand in the future
Correct.
when you don't know.
I think we're poised to be ready when there's an upswing then. It's a chance we're taking. But I think it's a good area to invest in, and we've made the commitments to this point.
Which is exactly right. Housing is a big issue, not only for Merrill, but across the state of Wisconsin and across the country. But the first homes are going to be on East 10th Street,
That's his plan.
and right now there's infrastructure there, correct, for sewer and water?
Correct.
So we don't have to do anything with that. And so
Well-
only when he extends to the north there.
The bids are due in tomorrow for this project.
Okay.
And we want to get going yet this fall to get most of it done. We have issues if we want to start in the spring. We're 1,000 feet from the river, so we have to wait till June 15th to do anything because of the wood turtle. So we want to get everything stripped and get as much done this fall as we can.
How many lots are there in the city that are not developed yet?
I would say there's probably in the neighborhood of 40. Darren?
Yeah, that's
Well,
tough to know.
right now, Ott
Exactly.
and Jaworski are working on the Nicholas subdivision. I think there's a neighborhood of 20 up there, but they're starting on that. Jaworski actually broke ground on one, Darren?
Yeah, he's got one up on Ellen Court that he's got a permit for, and he just started.
And I talked to Ryan Ott last night, and he's going to start 2 yet this year up there, so.
So most of the lots are just south of the feed lot. Half of the lots, if there's 40, you said there's about 20 in the Nicholas subdivision.
There's some
plus or minus.
Some vacant lots between existing homes that are 80 years old, which you'll say they're a vacant lot, but I don't see a high demand for that. Some of them are, I won't say unbuildable, but they're 60-foot wide to the point where we have changed the zoning to allow building there, but it's not the current style of home, and it would almost have to be like an apartment style.
They're buildable lots, but in a lot of cases, you see the neighbors wanting to share it to add to their 60-foot or 45-foot lot that they currently have.
And we have a list of those that I think the bids are due back on the 24th of October, public property or city property that we're selling.
Was it 3 or 5? I can't remember if was it 5
I
that
want to
was?
say there's 5 or 6 of them.
Backing up, Rod, what you're saying is there are lots out there that are between older homes, but who wants to build a $400,000 home on that lot?
Correct. I think you lose value as soon as you turn the key,
I think that's pretty evident over on State
State Street.
Street. That house is
Yep.
just
He just took it. He's changing realtors now. So
the wrong style and size of house for the rest of that block. So.
Correct.
and there's some issues with those lots. I mean, like you mentioned, Mr. Hartwig, that they're between older homes, 100-year-old homes. But this subdivision for Wendorf is going to be out amongst the trees, and it's going to be a new area. There's no
Light construction.
There's no deterrent such as a feed lot right next to them.
But my point is, hey, we have these lots out there, but who wants to build on some of these? Simple as
Some
that.
of them are smaller too, yep.
Rod, I have a question on, let's see, it's page 95, where letter I, it says developer to construct the necessary stormwater treatment facilities for the entire project, including the proposed street. If the city constructs, then we will not do the incentives. What is the,
Take, for example, if the stormwater, there's a stormwater pond on the northwest corner that will be built, and we're going to build it at this time. And if it costs us $60,000 to do all that, the first 6 homes, we won't give him incentive payments.
okay,
Does that make sense?
yeah.
So we're not, what's happening is we're not going to put the infrastructure in and give him the $10,000. It's going to be
Correct. For the stormwater portion,
for the
because
storm, yes.
development, be it the road and the lots, both need stormwater management. When you look at impervious surface on a typical home, you might be, 4,000 square feet of impervious surface, which has to be taken into account. So all those lots are taken into account. REI did the stormwater plan for us, and we're going to build that right away. We have to. And for him to get the incentives, the $10,000, we're just going to withhold those until that payment is taken care of.
The payment on the stormwater.
Correct.
Okay. So it could be 2-3 years before we actually pay him anything.
Correct.
Although we will have an investment,
Correct.
major investment
Yep.
in infrastructure.
But we're still not doing the curb and gutter portion until he's developed so far into
Correct.
the rest of it.
It just makes sense. We want to see development in there, and I'd almost like to have half the homes, built before we do that, just because large equipment usually tears stuff up.
That's what happened in the Keenitz property over there, wasn't it? We didn't put the gutter in, things of that nature, until after it was completed.
Well, there were some. A couple that were
Yep.
built afterwards, yes.
How many, some of the houses can go in now because there's developed property. How
3.
many, 3?
Yep.
Okay.
But he's already, and I know where you're headed with this, he's already purchased the property. He's relying on us to do
Mhm.
that. If we would pull back now, I think we'd have a...
No, that actually wasn't where I was going with that.
Okay.
I was curious if it was that or more, just like the infrastructure side of the project, we're starting next year. Or
Next month.
Yeah,
Next month. Okay.
If I remember right, the lots that he purchased, there's 3 on 10th where he can start right away.
Yeah, I remember
The other,
that, yeah.
the other lots are owned by other individuals there that could potentially develop on their own. Right? The one.
On 10th Street.
On 10th Street.
How many lots are there?
What was there's 3 or 4 other ones?
Well, there's Chad and Jenny Schmidt Olaf own that block between Poplar and Mill, 9th and 10th. Those lots that are vacant there, they own those. I think there's 3 on the south side of 10th Street, and there's probably another 2 or 3 on the north side of 9th Street that are buildable, and he's looking at putting duplexes eventually on there, but he's waiting for prices to go down also.
This is outside of the 22.
Right.
Outside of the Windorf.
Yep.
Rod, backing up to the 40 and the 20 lots south of town here, are all those lots developable? Do we have problems with bedrock out there?
There are rock issues. You see a lot of those are split level, where they're maybe 3-4 feet in the ground.
But all the lots could be serviced without great expense, blasting storm,
Right now,
stormwater.
the infrastructure's in there as far as sewer
But
and
to
water.
service the actual properties themselves.
Correct. But you look at some of these style homes where they're building on slab.
Okay.
They're buildable lots.
Okay.
To
that's
that
my
point.
question. Gotcha.
Can you put a full basement in all of them with effort? I haven't been up to see where Travis is digging on Ellen Court there, but have you?
All he's done so far is just scrape the topsoil off and
No, that was part of the reason why that wasn't developed. There was additional costs and excavation. I guess there are any other questions on the development agreement? This will go to council for approval.
Do you need a motion?
Yes, please.
I'll move to approve the development agreement between RDA, City of Maryland, RDA, and Wendorf Construction.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the developers agreement with Wendorf Construction. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have update on TID-funded projects and property.
The projects that we had going, O'Day Street, we finally finished up. That was well overdue. A lot of rain issues with different contractors, but that one's finally finished up. I think it turned out well. I've had a lot of feedback about the sidewalk that was included also, so it's good for the neighborhood up there. Out on TID 8, Webster Street, they have moved the timeline, I think, up a hair where we're going to see most of that construction done by August of next year. If you go out there, even the 220 units are moving right along. They want those closed in before snow flies, so I would anticipate that whole development should be done by August of 2025, somewhere in that neighborhood, I think was their time frame.
What has been completed out there so far?
All of the north side, which were the fourplexes, the west end on the south side of Webster Street, they're not occupied yet, but there was townhomes and duplexes there. The 220 units and the garages on the south side would be on the middle to east end of that development. Those are the ones they're working on yet.
That's what's left, right?
Correct. No, there'll be, I think it's 68 units, 64 or 68 units total that will be included after that's done, so.
I have to say, I drove out there on a Sunday and they were roofing and everything else out there, so I mean, they're trying to move along, so.
We do have one property that we are gonna put up for RFP. It's the old Merrillview Motel area. We tore that house down. That is our property. We will put that up for RFP when we've had a few people interested in putting like townhomes or fourplex on there.
Is it zoned residential?
It's zoned,
He just left.
I think it's cross mixed use, I think it is, but that would be a usable.
That's at South Center Avenue?
Yes.
South Center
Yes.
and O'Day right down the corner.
That's where they used the, cut across the corner while O'Day was being taken care of.
Only to get to the golf course, right?
Yeah.
Those guys thought they could ride right down O'Day Street.
Yeah. Somebody people did.
Those are the two projects that are hanging out there. Any other questions on TID-funded properties?
Is there any more movement as far as the out front in the old Walmart, where we've had that
The
kind
agreement
of on
that we-
hold or whatever?
The agreement that we have with the Bradford Group expires November 4th. And I think to Mark's point, there's some uncertainty in the economy right now. So I think after November 4th, we're going to, if we don't see a solid plan, we're going to withdraw from that agreement. And we do have another one that's very interested, so. I know it's been a year and nothing's happened, but that's part of planning.
Commercial real estate is not in a good space right now.
No. This one, I think, they've been after it for a while, so we'll see how it goes.
Anything else on that?
There are a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak, on properties that we don't control, and I think if half of them come to fruition, we'll be happy. Been a lot of inquiries, and I think people are waiting to see outcomes of elections and how the economy goes, and I'm sure this longshoreman strike won't help at all, so. we'll see what happens.
Date and time of next meeting will be Tuesday, November 12th at 6 PM. Be a public hearing on proposed TID plan amendments with the RDA to follow, immediately follow that meeting. Probably like 6:30-ish, thinking. Does that work for everyone? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.